Yeah, about those 7% of polling units where you say smart card readers were not used, but we also understand in the report that you had the last time that less than 1% of the polling units had no presence of smart card readers at the time. We also understand that 5% of the smart card readers malfunctioned in polling units, and then they were not replaced. That was the general scenario. But don't you think that since it's going to be on the states now, there will be a lot more focus and it will be done properly this time?
Well, Chamberlain, again, I have cautious optimism. Let's look at the build-up to these elections. And the kind of attacks that the Commission faced, some external sabotage or internal, as the case may be. If you recall in Anambra,
okay.
Over 4,000 smart card readers.
My apologies, Samson, please. We need to just quickly get to Uyo in Akwa Ibom State. It's one of the states that we're watching now to see what happens. We understand that some images coming through INEC offices, unpleasant developments at the moment, if we could see those images. But we have the resident electoral commissioner, Mike Igini, joins us on the line. Mike, thank you for joining us today on the verdict. But we have some images coming through saying that the INEC office in Uyo has been vandalized or touched. What is going on? Could you shed some light? What is this, Mike? What's going on? Well, those are images coming through. Well, we can't seem to get, word from Mike Igini. We're trying to establish that connection from him to share some light. Those images, we understand, is INEC office in Uyo. Don't forget, it's one of the states to watch. This is what many didn't want to see. We thought that this was far away from us. Because if you look through the dailies this morning, guys, where we reviewed the Vanguard, and there's a quote by the president where it says, March 9 polls, we can't afford to return to era of violence and mayhem ascribed to the president. So how do we explain this picture? We're trying to get Mike Igini on the line to shed some light about these images for INEC office. What is the implication of this now concerning the elections that will happen tomorrow?
You know, the way these things are turning out, it seems to suggest that when you try to block the loophole from one angle, it opens in another. Now, this is happening just before the elections. And you wonder that, okay, what about those security that were deployed for election day to protect INEC and infrastructure and the whole process? But this attack is happening just before the elections. So how do we get to that point where we don't have men of the underworld subvert the process? Because clearly this is putting Akwa Ibom State in a bad light.
Don't forget, they've had a change of commissioners of police in Akwa Ibom State, not once, more than twice. So this is untenable how this can happen, because you would expect that in the light of all of the concerns that they had raised before the presidential elections and the National Assembly election, that there will be tightened, a lot more improved security, such that they will watch over those equipment, especially what happened in Anambra as well, where those materials were touched. So you would have thought that security operatives would have stepped up and ensure that they have this 24-hour watch on those materials.
I think one of the things that would even give one cause for concern is the tough talk between the two leading political parties, even in Akwa Ibom. On the one hand, the Akwa Ibom state government is saying, hey, we don't want any war declaration from the opposition party, which in Akwa Ibom state, which is the APC, and that's the PDP government accusing the APC government in Akwa Ibom, APC in Akwa Ibom, of some war declaration and all of that. Of course, APC is also responding. So it gives one cause for concern. And seeing the kind of images that we are seeing, on TV, and the kind of experiences that the people, the INEC officials in Akwa Ibom are having now, it's giving a little cause for concern. All
right, let's get back to Abuja on this. Let's get them to weigh on these images. Well, I know that, gentlemen, you're concerned about this matter, but Samson, we were even taking a look at where smart card readers didn't function. But Mr. Kyari, if I could get your your impressions of what's going on? Certainly, you must be disappointed with what's going on in Akwa Ibom at the moment.
Well, Chamberlain, I'm actually beyond disappointment, not disappointed now. I think the question is about accountability. What do I mean by accountability? Akwa Ibom State has been one of the red flag states for a couple of reasons. In one state, we can see the desperation of politicians to seize or retain power in Akwa Ibom. Now, look at what happened in about 3 weeks, just within 3 weeks, following the presidential elections. The REC was not only intimidated, but was also threatened. In fact, at some point, it was going to be kidnapped, and this is public information. A matter was filed in court, seeking an order of court to remove the REC. You talked about the number of commissioners of police that have been redeployed from the state in how many weeks. Just this week, a video which was also aired on channels about some thugs that were intercepted and they were believed to have been deployed or sent by one of the chairmen of one of the political parties from another state to disrupt election in the state. You can see that there's just, again, and I must say this, that there has to be some responsibility. And there's a president of this country who has the responsibility to protect the lives and properties of Nigerians. When you hear public and as high as the vice president and the leader and even the president say that they were robbed of their victory in some states and they were going to reclaim their victory in some of these states, and you see these manifestations actually happen, despite public assurances that the public received, despite the deployment of security agents to those places, and you still see this breach of security, it just simply tells you that somebody does not want the election to hold in Akwa Ibom State. And it is very, very unfortunate for our democracy. And I think the president needs to accept responsibility and address this, because if there's one legacy he would leave for Nigeria, is to ensure that we've got peace and credible elections. If the issue in Anambra and Rivers and Lagos and other states are not addressed, then honestly, I would place the responsibility on the doorsteps of the president of this country. And just coming to the issue of the sabotage, you could see before the elections, 4,000-something card readers were damaged or destroyed in Anambra. You saw Abia, you also saw Plateau. The Electoral Commission cannot conduct elections in this kind of atmosphere. And I say this oftentimes, that why is it that as a country we are beginning to build a narrative that national service is signing your death warrant? People who are serving this country, conducting elections, and for them it's about threat to life. And it's just very sad that this is happening 24 hours to the elections. But I hope that, and I know the Electoral Commission will review this situation, if it is possible to proceed with the elections in Anambra, I'll urge the Electoral Commission to proceed to conduct the elections in Akwa Ibom, I beg your pardon, so that those doomsayers and naysayers who are trying to ensure that elections don't hold in Akwa Ibom and other states are put to shame. Because at the end of the day, the Akwa Ibom people must be given an opportunity to exercise their franchise. We owe them as a nation that responsibility, and we can't take that responsibility away from them. And if you talk about the card readers, you've got, a few days ago, we heard a story in Bayelsa, and across the country, it appears that there is just an attempt to cage the Electoral Commission and undermine its ability to deploy the card readers. And I'm just wondering, does INEC have backup card readers in the event one of the card readers actually malfunctions tomorrow, or across different polling stations, card readers malfunction? Does INEC have a reserve card reader machines to replace some of those card readers? That's a big issue that INEC needs to address, because for the Anambra, they had to mop up they had to mop up card readers from other states. And so as we go to the elections tomorrow, we are very, very concerned that in polling stations across Nigeria, if card reader malfunctions, I doubt if INEC will have a sufficient backup to replace those card readers. And if it's widespread, then we'll probably have more inconclusive elections in those across the country, because if card reader malfunctions and it's not replaced, elections are conducted either the next day or a new date is fixed. It is not public resistance to the use of the card reader, because the guidelines is clear that if there is public resistance to the use of the card reader, the polling officials or the returning officer will enter 0 votes for those polling stations. But where card reader malfunctions or they are not deployed in the polling station, it then means elections cannot hold in those places. And this is an issue INEC needs to address, but the security agencies also need to respond. Okay. But from the standpoint of civil society and citizens, I think it's important to condemn what happened in Anambra State, in Akwa Ibom State, and say this is unacceptable.